Those of you that are longtime viewers may realize this car's not sitting at its normal spot now. Take two. Once I turn the power on, anyway. to get by. I don't want to fire this thing up while the sheriff's right down the road. Alright, I trust it.
We had a little problem. It didn't get that hot till I stopped here. So I'm letting the electric water pump drive just turn this thing for a little while. Hopefully it'll kind of move some of that crap out of there. Or at the very least, get it to where this isn't scorching hot. And yeah, it's pretty warm, pretty toasty. The tiniest of kitties. Kitty Blanca. What? Meow. Meow. Good kitty. Playful kitty.
Well, luckily, this thing still got coolant in it. Already checked. There's still some in there.
Problem is, this gets a little hot. And there's also a massive amount of oil that comes out down off in this area somewhere. It seems this thing's gonna need a front seal. That timing cover is gonna have to come off, balancer, everything's gonna have to come out so that way I can replace it. Which sucks, because I just put the water pump on. At least I greased my gasket, so maybe they'll come off. This thing still needs plenty of work, by which I mean this base plate replaced. And for some reason, my alternator quit charging at one point. Don't know what that's all about. I wonder if my point star regulator already gave out. Yeah, you know what? You gotta make your own custom white wall sometimes. By which I mean, obviously, I had some tire clearance issues. This thing's gonna need the wheel wells cut open for what I have in mind, that's for certain. These tires didn't do too bad. I'm surprised this one still holds air, because, yikes. What do you think, little tiny kitty? You're the same color as my boot, you know that? And you're named after a rock. Obsidian. So, this front suspension is gonna need a lot of work. This car was an absolute handful to drive. It went all over the place. But in all, I'm pretty happy. I finally got to drive this car. She's no longer just out in the pasture. Yeah. This car is gonna be fast. Oh, and by the way, it does spool stuff. Them tracks are a little scratchy on the outside. Golly! The kitties love me.
Alright, got my earplugs in. I'm gonna see if I can't fire this thing up and just move it over there next to the Pinto. Have not touched this thing today. Well, hadn't tried to start it at least. I cranked it earlier just to make sure that the engine was still gonna crank all right. I guess that works. I got it roughly where I wanted it to be. Now let's just remember to turn you off. It's already smoking again. Woo! Man! Knocked out a dirt dauber's nest. I don't know exactly what I'm gonna be doing with this car right now, but at the very least, it's not right in the way. It's time to get a little bit more tire clearance here. I'm about to smack this pretty good until that wheel lip's folded all the way up. Cause I'm tired of doing this to my tires. This one was the good side. Hey, fancy seeing y'all here. Y'all missed baby's first burnout. Tracks are a little narrow, which I guess makes sense, but narrower than I thought they'd be. Rode down here on the KDX just to show y'all that. Update. There's a fancy little base plate on this thing. Of course, I swapped out the factory one for this one for one simple reason. The factory one is more smooth out. Plus, this one has this fancy adjustment here, which makes idle tuning a little bit easier. You know, you can adjust your secondary idle a little easier. Now, here's a problem I'm running into. This carburetor had such high float heights that it was just dribbling gas out. So, I got my front bowl set perfectly, but this rear bowl, it's a little too high. So I'm gonna have to drop it down, do some tuning there, and I'll catch back up with y'all once I have this right here set perfectly. Well, got all my tools put back up. We're not going to talk about this quite yet. Keep in tune for that. That's coming in a later video. Hood's closed. And guess what isn't on this thing? The fancy billet base plate, which for some reason made the idle on this car phenomenally worse. Don't know why, I just know it did. So I took it back off, put the old base plate back on, and it's back to acting the exact same as it did before. With this, it would it just acted like I had no fueling at idle. At the very least, that one acts like it does. So I'm gonna fire the car up and let y'all come along for a ride. on again.
Well, she's still getting hot. I haven't seen it say 280 again, but still gets hot. I'm letting the water pump run for a little while to cool it back down. Luckily, there's a fan back behind here. You can actually feel there's some air moving. Right there, I get it at its strongest. Yippee! Man, this thing's leaking a lot of oil. Oh, and by the way, did I mention that this thing handles like a nun carrying a mattress? Because it kind of handles like a nun carrying a mattress. I'm gonna have to rebuild every bit of this front suspension. You know, a buddy of mine said, Ford, the front suspension that will not drive straight down the road. But right now, it's the Chrysler that's doing that. Oh well, at the very least, I'll get to actually tinker around with these things. But in all, at least it's driving. I've driven it quite a few times so far. You know, a lot of times we weren't on camera. It's a lot of fun to drive. It really is. And with that, just keep in mind that I am a member of the Rapid Transit System because Plymouth makes it.